made loads and loads of mistakes. And then I made the decision to close it down because I realised it just wasn't going to take off. There was a period of me at what felt rock bottom and just trying to slowly build myself up. I felt really embarrassed by what happened, but actually I'm in a much better position. I've learned so much and I've got nothing to lose. It would make everything that happened previously worth it. So I was like, I can take that and still make it a success.
This is the real of building a conscious business, the hard-earned lessons, unfiltered truths, and impactful guests. Welcome to Confessions of a Conscious CEO. This was such an inspiring interview. I had on Daisy, the founder of Loom, an award-winning upcycling app that connects you with hundreds of designers to redesign your clothes. She is a second-time founder in the sustainable fashion space and has worked in the fashion industry for over 12 years, most recently leading the global merchandising outlet team at Burberry. In this conversation, we dived into her first business and why she ultimately shut it down. We also go into how she found the courage to start another business, how she took the lessons and the learnings from her first business, and instead of viewing it as a quote-unquote failure, it showed her that she had nothing to lose. She has raised over 300,000 pounds for this business. It's doing so well, and so it was such a good conversation, and I know you're going to learn a lot from it. Before we dive in, I have a brand new free course called GTM Essentials. There are 12 bite-sized lessons in the complimentary Notion workbook to help you build a business that will actually sustain itself and be profitable. We will perfect your product market fit. I will teach you how to build a sustainable sales funnel so you can get leads and sales, as well as how you can build your brand from scratch and do your marketing. If you haven't already checked it out, you can do so via the link down below or at selinaho.com/GTM-essentials. And now let's dive into the interview. Welcome, Daisy, to Confessions of a Conscious CEO. I am so excited to sit down with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. To get started, I know you're the founder of Loom, and I am so excited to talk about Loom. But do you want to start by talking about your entrepreneurship journey? Because I know Loom isn't your first business. So What was your first business? How did you fall into it? And then how did you start Loom?
So I have always worked in fashion, so mainly in merchandising. Straight out of uni, I got a job in a big corporate company, which was great. It had amazing training, but eventually it got to a point where I just didn't really feel like I was having any impact. And I was learning more and more about sustainability and becoming more and more passionate about that. And the job that I was in was basically fast fashion, creating loads of items that were essentially just going to end up in landfill. I created my first company from the desire to do something that was aligned with my values. I had decided that I wanted to only shop from small, sustainable brands and was finding it really difficult to find brands that I really loved the style of and that were also sustainable. And this was probably about 6 years ago now. So things have changed and it's probably a lot easier. But at the time, I decided I was going to create essentially a Shopify store, but a marketplace of a curated collection of small, sustainable brands. I basically just got to the point in my old job where I was depressed. And I think it's because the work I was doing, I wasn't having an impact and it wasn't aligned with my values. And so I decided to just quit, do a small crowdfunding campaign and then launch the website. So I really threw myself into the deep end. Yeah. But it was coming from a place of, I don't know what else I'm going to do, so I might as well force the change to happen. And it was great. It was a really good experience. It was crazy. And it was during COVID that it actually launched. So I was at home with my laptop, no events happening or anything like that, which in a way was good for online sales. But yeah, I threw myself into the deep end and basically just made loads and loads of mistakes. A lot. Learned loads and it lasted for around 2 years. And then I made the decision to close it down because I realized it just wasn't going to take off.
Thanks for sharing. There's so much there. So my first question is, how did you have the courage to start it? Because I know you were unhappy at your job, but it also takes a lot to quit and then do this. Whereas for me, I relate a lot to your story because mine is similar. I was at a corporate job. I didn't love it, but I did my business as a side hustle because I was a little too freaked out to completely quit. So I really respect that you just fully sent it and fully committed.
Yeah, I was building it a little bit on the side. It wasn't a complete quitting and then just starting everything from scratch the next day, actually. It sounds brave, but I think it was really coming from a place of desperation. And I was like, I just want to do something that is going to bring joy to my life. I had a website live, but it definitely wasn't at a place where it was sustaining me financially. I just decided that I wanted to give it everything and see if then it could take off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe not the smartest move.
No, but I also do think, though, it takes so much time to start a business, as through that, it seems like you've learned some lessons. Yeah. You got some scars that you earned with grit and determination. But what were some of those lessons you learned?
One of the big ones was that I tried to do everything on my own. I was almost embarrassed to ask people for help because I felt like I had to know everything. It was really scary to put myself out there in front of colleagues, friends, family and be like, I'm quitting my job and starting something completely new. Rather than me going out there and finding advisors, asking help from people who'd been through it before, I was like, okay, I can find the information online. I can work this out on my own. That wasn't the smartest way forwards. And I've definitely done that completely the other way with Loom. I spent a ton of money on paid ads, which just like burnt through cash so quickly. So that's definitely something I'm not doing. It can feel like they will save you when you're like really looking to grow. What do we try next? It's hard to then step out once you've started doing them. Also, this is more specific to sustainable fashion, but a lot of my marketing for that business was all around these are incredible brands because they're sustainable. And that was true, and that's why I had started it, and that's what I'm still passionate about, but that's not why people buy. They buy because they love the style, how it feels. The price is a huge part of it as well. Whereas I was really pushing, this is sustainable. Trying not to be preachy, it's like a nice add-on for most people.
Okay, all of those are really good lessons. The ad one specifically, I wanted to talk about because it's not very sustainable, to your point.
Yeah.
I feel people use it as a get out of jail free card, and it can be good for a little bit, but then it's almost like drugs. You get addicted to it.
It really is.
And then if you don't have your own community, if you don't have your organic marketing sorted out, you then become so reliant on it. And then if anything changes or things get more expensive, then you're in trouble. That's why I'm always like, ads are great, but they can't be your only sales mechanism.
Yeah. And I think at the time, it was just after ads had been insanely amazing for a lot of companies. And it was when privacy laws had started to change and they weren't as amazing as they had been. Now I definitely wouldn't touch them until we're huge and we have a massive community. It makes sense to try them.
When did you decide to stop the original business, and how did you know it wasn't working? And then how did you have the courage to do it? Because a lot of times you can just keep going as a founder. I got to keep going. At least that's how I felt. And having gone through that personally, I know how it feels. I would love for you to share.
Yeah, good question. I actually wish that I had done it earlier. So I think another important learning was that I took out a startup loans. They're a personal loan, so they're held against you, not the business. I was advised at the time to take one out and they do it in 2 parts. After the first part had been received, I had an inkling that it wasn't working. And rather than be like, okay, let's stop it there, I then took out the second part and then everything started to fail quite quickly. So on reflection, I'm like, I should have done it earlier. But I think it's just a gut feeling. Now I trust my intuition a lot more with decisions around the business rather than trying to make decisions with my head and calculate things. Obviously, I'll take calculated risks.
Yeah.
I think if something's not working or if it's not right, final straw on the camel's back was we had what I thought was an amazing opportunity to be part of a 2-month-long pop-up on Oxford Street. I was so swept away with the idea of what it could have been that I didn't really take into account that I couldn't afford for someone to be in the shops. I had to be there every single day. People weren't coming into the shop. The only people that were coming in were stealing stuff. And
oh my gosh.
It was like a real mental challenge for 2 months. And after that, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So sometimes there is just one thing. It just pushes you over the edge and you're like, no, this isn't right. I can't do this anymore for my own mental health.
No, but that's so admirable of you to have tried and given it a full go. And I know towards the end, it can feel like you have failed and you're not a good entrepreneur or whatever. And so how did you deal with that and any imposter syndrome that might have come from that? And then how did you then start Loom and have the courage to do that again?
Yeah, it was really difficult. I have this really strong memory. I was on a plane. I had created the Instagram post and the newsletter that was basically going to tell everyone that it was stopping. And I remember sending it then because I was like, okay, I'm going to be on a plane. No one can message me. And I can just I can just pretend it's not happening for a few hours. Sent those, posted, and then just remember just crying. And I was like, oh, this is just so sad.
Yeah.
And you put so much into it.
You really do, yeah.
You feel like it has to happen because you've done everything and you've sacrificed so much. So there was definitely a time of mourning and just letting everything be. I then had to get other jobs, and that's a weird thing to go from doing your own thing to then working for someone else. So there was a period of me at what felt rock bottom and just trying to slowly build myself up. I'd had the idea for Loom while I was doing the previous business. So that was always in the back of my mind, and I started to build on it, but I was so scarred and I was so scared to do it again.
Yeah.
However, I got to the point where I know I felt really embarrassed by what happened, but actually I feel like I'm in a much better position. I've learned so much from it and I've got nothing to lose. I was like, if I can make this happen somehow, then that would be amazing. And then it would make everything that happened previously worth it. So in my head, I was like, okay, I can take that and still make it a success. But it did take a while to get to that point. And then there was a twist of fate where I saw that there was an accelerator that came with a grant to launch a sustainable business idea and pitch the idea, really not thinking anything was going to come from it. And then it got accepted. And that gave me a boost. And I was like, okay, maybe this could happen.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try and build myself up so I can go through it again.
That's amazing. I know that throughout it must have taken time, and it seems like you were at rock bottom, and to pick yourself back up again, I think that's really admirable. So that's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
You just have to eventually. But it's definitely going through that. Now when things go wrong or things happen, if you've been through something difficult, you're like, I know I can get through this.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. So it's great in a way because I feel like my resilience has definitely leveled up.
Yeah, it builds trust with yourself. You're like, I did that hard thing, so I can do this. This is easy.
Yeah, that's a really lovely way of putting it. Yeah, definitely.
And I loved your mindset shift around this maybe didn't work out, but I learned so much from it, and I still gained so much from it. And I can still turn this into a win, or I can still use that to springboard onto this next thing. So I think that's a great way of looking at it. Do you want to talk about what Loom is, what problem you're trying to solve, and how do you come up with the idea for it? Because you mentioned you had it in the back of your mind, but what kickstarted that?
Yeah, of course. So what kickstarted it was when Loft was coming to the end, I still wanted to learn why it hadn't worked out. And so I was talking to as many of my customers as possible to get their feedback, learn what their actual pain points were. And I kept having the same conversation again and again where people were saying, I do want to shop sustainably, but I never really find my style. And also I have this wardrobe full of clothes that I never wear. On the side, I started connecting people with designers that I had met along the way to get their clothes custom made and upcycled, redesigned. I realized that a lot of people just don't realize that there's all these incredible designers out there who you can just contact and they'll work with you to create something that's in your style. And then you're keeping these amazing pieces that you've already invested in rather than selling them for a fraction of the price or donating them where ultimately they'll probably end up in landfill. That's how the idea came from. Essentially just from seeing how excited people were at the idea and then the final design that they were getting. Got onto that accelerator, started testing it out, getting people's feedback. Once we got onto that's when I was like, okay, I want to try and do this again.
I love that. And when we met, you were, I think, at the tail end of your MVP, but I always thought it was so smart you did that and you didn't just sink hundreds of thousands of pounds into this app right away. You tested it first. And do you want to talk about what the MVP looked like? How you knew that it was good enough to test and be comfortable with it?
It came from necessity because I had no money. I was in all this debt from the previous business. And so I was like, I'm not doing that again. I had learned that it's better to test the idea first rather than just go full steam ahead and then it fail and you're not in a great position. So the MVP first version, I wish there was a way that I could get it to show you because now it looks so funny and it was just so cumbersome. It was a no-code website. We had 10 designers at the beginning and it was a website that you could log into. So it did the same thing as the app. but it was just too many steps to it. It wasn't very clean. That was the MVP 1. Then I was like, why am I spending this money on this website? People aren't really using it. I'm just going to use a type form and I'll just do all the matching manually in the background. That worked really well. It got to a point where people were spending a lot of money with us for me to match them with the designer. And at that point, when people are actually committing to spending money, I was like, this has got legs now. At that point, again, it was just always talking to customers and understanding what's working, what's not, and how I can make it easier. And it was only from that I was like, okay, if I want to scale this, I need to build an app.
And pausing quickly so people can understand.
Yeah.
With Loom, you are connecting people that want to upcycle their clothes with designers.
Yeah.
And then designers can design it for them.
Yeah. So you essentially upload a photo of the item that you want to get redesigned. So it could be jeans or your wedding dress. We match you with our designers based on your style, your location, and if there's a specific service that you're looking for. But we can also just give you ideas, so you don't have to know what you want to get done.
Okay, cool. What's the business model on that? Do you take a percentage or is there a monthly fee?
Yeah, so our designers set their fee and then we add a 20% commission on top that's paid for by the customer. So our designers always get to keep 100% and we're not taking it from the work that they're doing. Instead, it's the customer paying us for the concierge service that they're getting.
And so with the app, you felt like there was legs, you were having repeat customers, you were spending enough money. How did you then go and design the app and decide what that was going to look like?
I had a pretty clear vision in my head of what it needed to look like, then just started looking for someone that could bring it to life. So I spent a long time trying to find a technical co-founder because I thought that would be amazing if I could find the right person and we could then build something without getting funding. But unfortunately, I never met the right person. So then I started looking into other solutions and agencies and was really lucky and got recommended who I ended up using through a friend.
Oh, that's amazing.
But I was very nervous about working with an agency because I'd heard all of these horror stories. Yeah. And as a non-technical person, it's really difficult because there's no way I can personally vet anything. So that was a bit scary.
Yeah, for sure. The app looks great now.
Oh, thank you. The agency that we work with have been really brilliant. I'm still with them and they're still great. So I feel very lucky that I held out until met the right people.
Yeah, that's so important. As you're working with them, because you have a non-technical background, how did you navigate that? Did you learn some stuff about coding? Did you leverage ChatGPT? What did that look like?
Yeah, I had built a board of advisors, and within that, I'd also at that point had some investors who worked in tech. So I got them to speak to the agency to ask all of the technical side of it. Everything outside of the tech spec that was also important to me, reaching deadlines, how do they like to work, how often will we catch up? That's what I then spoke to them about. So it was a joint effort.
Oh, that's amazing that your advisor did that. That's great.
Yeah, which was so helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're essentially building a marketplace, and that is historically one of the more difficult business models to do.
Yeah.
And you did that with your previous business as well. So you probably had lessons learned from that and then you get to get here. But with a marketplace, you have to build up the customer base and you have to build up the seller base. But it's a very chicken and egg scenario because your customers won't come if there's nothing to buy. Yeah. But then your sellers won't come if there's no one to buy their stuff. So it's a very chicken and egg scenario. So that's the difficulty of it. It's hard to try to scale both at the same time. Yeah. So how are you managing?
Just taking it step by step. It's always one or the other side of it that we're more focused on.
Yeah.
Now that it's me and Hannah, it's a tiny team of two, we split it. Hannah's much more focused on the designer side and growing that side of the marketplace, and I'm more focused on the customer side and partnerships. But at the beginning, we had those 10 designers who were lovely and put their faith in the idea and thought it was great and were willing to just be there as the customers came. The turning point was when we launched the app, because that meant that we could start to scale it. And we already had about 50 designers when the app launched, and now we have, I think we're getting close to 150.
Amazing.
I think just the press that we got around the launch meant that we had designers reaching out to us, and that was great because we were like, okay, that side's kind of managing it, so then we could just focus on the customers.
Yeah.
Now we are, like I said, splitting it, but it kind of changes depending on what's happening in the business. It's a little bit fluid. There's no set routine or schedule that we're on. We're kind of just trying to listen to what the business needs.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are the indicators that weigh it one way or another? Is it like if designers can't find people to upcycle, or is it if your customers can't find designers? Are those some of the indicators you're looking at?
Yeah, basically. So if we're getting projects through and we don't have the designers for it, then we're like, okay, now we're going to really focus on designers. If it's all kind of ticking over, but we're like, actually, we need the revenue to spike up again, then we'll focus more on the customer side. The nice element to this marketplace is that for our designers, it's freelance work. So they're not relying on it for their full-time job, or most of them aren't anyway. And so it doesn't matter to some extent if they're not getting orders every single week, because some of them come to us only when they need us. Others are using us all the time. That element makes it less stressful about them having to look for it. Still, obviously, we want to provide value to the designers.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's a nice balance, touch wood. Nice. So hopefully that continues.
That makes sense. And I think it's really nice that your previous business where you were selling physical products, if someone's not buying them, it sucks. Whereas this is more like a service thing. So it's not like they've invested time yet.
Yeah.
So that's the differentiating piece, it seems.
Yes. And I think the other big piece learning from the previous business is when you are starting a marketplace and you're featuring brands or designers, it's the kind of leakage. Like, how do you stop the customers then going to the designers directly?
Yeah.
And in the end, we became just a marketing platform for the brands. There was no real reason for a customer to use us again once they'd discovered them, which was obviously a huge flaw. Whereas with Loom, we provide all this additional value for both the customers and the designers, which was always really important from the beginning, so that we don't have that issue. So I think that's another really big problem.
That's a really good point. You coming at it of like, how can we provide value to both sides so that you can eliminate that leakage?
Yeah, that was from the beginning. I was like, it's only going to work if we can solve this. Because otherwise it's just going to fall flat at the first hurdle.
Yeah. See, it's another...
there were so many.
Let's talk about your fundraising journey, because you have just closed your pre-C round.
Yeah.
Congrats.
It still feels like a little bit surreal to hear that, because we've been working on it for so long. So yeah, that's really exciting.
I know. How long were you raising for? Because I remember when we met, you were pitching and doing pitch competitions and actively doing it. So how long did it take?
I would say I started fundraising pretty early on. So realistically, about 2 years ago, I started learning how to. I was like, I don't even know where to start. I know I'm going to have to do it because you need all this capital investment to launch an app. We raised a smaller amount early on from angel investors, and we won an Innovate UK grant. And that was the hardest fundraising by far. And that probably took about a year and a half, because I was just, again, making mistakes, but I was trying to learn fast. It's like how to pitch your business to investors. It's really weird initially when you're having calls with people and asking for money, because that's not something I'd ever done. Never worked in sales or anything like that. So there were all of these new skills that I had to learn really quickly. It's not that I didn't believe in the business at the beginning, but I think once you go into these meetings with people and you're like, I'm giving you an amazing opportunity to invest in this business, that's when things start to change. And also it's just a full-time job. I was always at the beginning trying to do a little bit alongside everything else, and that just didn't work. I only started to gain momentum once I was actually talking about it in public and pitching, but working on it full-time and following up.
It's a lot. So how did you first learn about fundraising? Was there books you read, podcasts you listened to?
It was online accelerators that I was doing. I got onto a couple of other accelerators that really helped. So initially, there's an accelerator called Hotbed that I was on, which they've got loads of YouTube videos. They do online courses and they're free and anyone can join. And they were amazing. They had really great speakers on, and that kind of gave me a basis. A lot of Googling online to understand things. And then I got onto another accelerator called Unrest, which is for positive impact businesses, which was absolutely brilliant and really honest conversations about fundraising. That just helped me level up again. I remember one thing they said that really stuck with me was that you're always fundraising. That changed it for me because I was like, okay, I'm never going to be just fundraising and then stopping and working on the business. Even now, I'm still obviously updating our own investors, but if an opportunity comes across, I'll meet with another investor and just trying to keep everyone excited and ready for when it's the next round.
You mentioned something that I always say, but I know it's hard to practice in reality, which is recognizing that not only, yes, are they investing in your business, but you're giving them an opportunity to invest and make more money and make a return. But I know for first-time founders that are fundraising, it can be hard to remember that because it can be scary. And so how did you get to that place? Was it seeing the results, seeing the customer reviews, seeing the designers' feedback? What helped you change your mindset around that?
Definitely that. I mean, we'd always had really lovely reviews from the beginning, but I think it was when we started to get amazing press and like incredible advisors joining us and in first few investors and seeing how excited they were, that all starts building up your confidence. I started to realize that some of the people that I was talking to about investing were either time wasters or I don't know. I started to realize actually I had agency in who I wanted to let into the business. I'd always known that I wanted people who were going to invest, who shared the vision and the values. Actually, I started to get a sense pretty quickly if I was like, I don't want this person to own a part of my business.
Yeah.
And I think all of these things start to come together and then you just get to that level of confidence. You can see the vision really clearly and see things starting to happen. And you're like, okay, it's going to happen. Believe it. And then I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, love that. I also think it's another dynamic shift of being you're either in or you're out and just making sure you're not just taking check from anyone.
Yeah.
So for you, how do you evaluate whether or not someone's a good fit? I know you talked about vision, values, all that stuff, which is so important. But anything else?
I think it's like dating in a way where you just get an instinct of what a person's like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I have to update our investors. I don't have to. I choose to, and I really enjoy updating our investors every month because they send me lovely emails in return. If there's something that I've got a challenge with, I know I can call them and they're not going to be annoyed with me or they're going to actually support me because they understand how it works. I feel like we have a really lovely team. When you're talking to people, you can tell from the questions they ask, the way that they're acting, just those little indicators of if they're a good person. And then I think you just, okay, I'm not sure this is right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For anyone that is just starting their fundraising journey and going out to pitch competitions and stuff, do you have any words of advice?
I would say for pitch competitions, just keep practicing and try and make it super concise. From going along to them and watching so many people pitch, you just need to be so clear and have a hook. Like with all marketing, the worst pitches are always the one where people just waffle. They kind of finish and you're like, I don't know what your business does.
And I don't know what you're asking for.
I don't know what happened, which is definitely probably what I was like at the beginning as well. Practicing it as much as possible definitely helps and just getting as much feedback.
Yeah.
As painful as it is. And then just practicing being in front of people so that you get more and more confidence. I think for like pitch competitions or public pitches, that's always great. But I think most of the pitching you'll do will be one-on-one. Making sure that you have a great hook and an exciting way of telling your story in the business. Just making a note of the questions people ask. And if you ever feel like your answers aren't quite exciting them enough or they're not quite hitting the spot, just making a note and then trying different ways of answering it until every time you're chatting to people, you say it with confidence, but also you know that they're like, oh, this is exciting. Yeah. And then you keep getting more and more calls until they invest.
Okay, cool. Not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. What were some examples of hooks you've done just so people can get an idea? Yeah.
For me, with it being a sustainable business, I hit them with some shocking facts at the beginning. So for me, one of the big ones is that every second a garbage truck full of clothing is burnt or dumped in landfill. And I then position it to, depending on who I'm speaking to, but say by the time I finish this pitch, 20 times the size of this room will have been thrown into landfill or something like that.
Yeah.
Rhetorical questions and just, you know, the business inside out, but with the pitch, you just want them to ask questions at the end. So you don't need to explain everything, but you just need to explain enough that it's going to get them excited and then come up to you afterwards to get the answer to their question. So you don't want to answer everything. You want them to ask questions afterwards.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so it seems get your hook in, the problem, explain very succinctly what you're doing, and then what you're asking for, and then that's it.
And then your traction.
And your traction, yes.
And you will be able to find something that you can spin to sound exciting. And then I think at the end, say something that creates urgency so that they come to speak to you. So if you're raising, just say we're closing soon or we're this much committed. So if you want to invest, you need to speak to me tonight. That confidence at the end of a pitch always gets people's interest. So yeah.
Look at you. I love it. I also wanted to talk about, you said you were full-time fundraising. So what did an average week look like? Because on surface, people can just be like, oh, she just needs to take meetings or she just needs to email people. Like, how much time could that actually take?
Yeah.
But I know it takes a long time.
Yeah.
If you just wanted to be real with everyone.
Trying to go to as many pitch events as I could. There was only a couple that I actually found investors from, but it was just great for getting the word out there. People keep seeing you. You can post about it on your LinkedIn and your socials, and then people just are aware and you keep popping up. So that was more from like a marketing about the fundraising perspective. Outside of that, it would be outreach. I feel like everyone who's an investor always tells you that you should write really personal outreach to everyone. But when you're a solo founder and you also do have a business that needs to keep going, I just did not have the time and I never saw the return on it. And so I did use automated messages, and then that would just get people into my funnel of investors. And then it's just following up. And if you're reaching out to literally thousands of people, there's so many people that you have to follow up with. And then you're taking the actual meetings. So your week actually fills up really quickly. It doesn't sound like there's a lot going on there. And then outside of that, you might be updating your pitch deck or doing some legals or actually getting people to sign the contract and send over the funds. It doesn't sound that much, but it is.
No, I think it does because you also have limited energy.
Yeah.
And so my follow-up question was going to be, throughout all of that, how did you take care of yourself?
Good question. So when I started fundraising, I actually got burnt out really quickly because I was right at the early stages and just making mistake after mistake. So there wasn't a lot of momentum right then. And just not looking after myself in the right way. I think not beating myself up if something goes wrong or someone decides not to invest, which I never really did in a huge way, but trying to be a bit stricter with myself and be like, if they say no, it's their loss, kind of move on. But also not beating myself up if I was tired. So for me, I'm a huge introvert, and like going to these events and pitching on stage, actually the pitching in a way wasn't too bad, but it's more all the small talk that you have to do, having the confidence to just go up to random groups of people and be like, hi. It wasn't that it was like super difficult. It's just so draining. Like if you go up to people and introduce yourself, most of the time people are so lovely and you can have a really nice conversation, but it's just tiring. And for a while I was like, I've been at this event all evening. I need to get up super early the next day. And I think as soon as I was like, actually, I'm knackered, I need to have a bit of a rest or whatever that looked like, making sure that I'm exercising. I've never been very good at eating well, but trying to make sure the basic, it's really tough. I think taking time to rest, because then you're more productive and you know this, but it's just, for me anyway, it's just the guilt. I feel so guilty if I was like not working at whatever time in the morning.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're talking about this because rest is productive, and I think people are coming around to that now and realizing that, and it's really important to take care of yourself, otherwise your body will force you to rest.
And it always does. And then otherwise you just end up being so ill that you're like properly wiped out.
You're like out for a month.
But even now I still get that guilt.
It's the founder journey or dilemma, because it is something you're building that you're so passionate about, and so it makes sense. You want to put your all into it, you want it to succeed, you want it to do well. So I go through it. I'm sure a lot of people listening go through it. So it's normal. Last question on all of this. You did mention that it was difficult building your business at the same time as fundraising, which I can imagine. So how did you go about that? Did you just prioritize, do whatever was urgent?
I had the mindset that I can't fundraise full time. I'm going to set this day or these days to it, and then the rest of the time I'm going to go on the business. But eventually it was just the worst of both worlds. I was like, the business isn't going to take off until I get this money. So that has to be my main priority. And then I would just do anything that was urgent for the business. And obviously, if any huge opportunity came along, I would still do my best to do that, but outside of my core working hours, within reason of looking after myself. So, yeah, and I think that's why I would say don't try and fundraise unless you really need it, especially if you're a solo founder, because unless you have great connections, it's going to take up a lot of time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for sharing all of that. I think it'll be really helpful to people. I wanted to talk about press and marketing as well.
Yeah.
So you have gotten some amazing press. You've been in Vogue. How did that come about?
From the beginning of Loom, I had always based our go-to-market strategy off of similar businesses in the fashion tech space. For me, that was rental apps because they were a new concept a few years ago. You're creating this amazing fashion brand, but you also have to educate people about how it works, why you should do it, why it's amazing. One business in particular that I was really inspired by was By Rotation. I was looking at their success and realized that the PR and the press side of it was really important because one, it helped educate people, but build trust and obviously brand awareness and finding customers. I reached out to an agency who did their press and I was like, I'm building this business. I would really love to work with you. I can't work with you right now, but when we get funding, would you want to work with us? She was like, yeah, definitely.
That's so amazing. What have you learned about PR?
I've been really lucky because they've been so amazing and supportive, because I also know a lot of founders who have spent a lot of money on PR and haven't received what they were expecting. Always bringing people into your team and celebrating the successes. And obviously there's still times where it's a bit of a quieter time, but using that time to create new ideas. But it's a huge commitment financially.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, I just feel this is really important. And at the beginning, a lot of investors were like, are you sure you want to spend this? And I was like, yeah, I really think it's going to have a big impact. I know there's loads of websites that you can do it yourself. So there's loads of different solutions. I think it's just finding the one that's right for your business.
I'm so glad you had a good experience. I also similarly had a really good PR agency I was working with at the beginning. And then the second one was so bad. And so
really?
It just sucks. It's very hit or miss with agencies, as we talked about.
Yeah.
And then on LinkedIn, it's always a highlight reel. On Instagram, it's always a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Are there any challenges you're going through right now that you want to share?
Good question. There's always challenges.
Yeah.
I think for us at the moment, we're an exciting place where we feel like now we're really starting to grow. So previously, we've just been making sure everything works, making sure that we've got enough designers and customers. And now we're trying to work out how do we get to the next stage. So for us, one of those ways is by working with brands. And so we're working out, what does that look like? What brands do we want to partner with? How can we make sure that we're providing amazing value for them? So that's probably our biggest challenge at the moment. We had a collaboration with Oxfam launch this summer, which was really exciting. But now we're also working with fashion brands, working out what that looks like. So we actually have a couple underway, which are really exciting, very different to the Oxfam one. In a way, we're at the ideation stage. We're exploring it, doing the pilots.
And how did you determine that was potentially the next move?
Because brands kept reaching out to us. We had the collaboration with Oxfam as we were going through, and I was looking at it, I was like, actually, if we could find a way for this B2B part of the business to grow, and I was doing the numbers, I was like, this could be absolutely huge. And it's great because then it helps us with brand awareness, obviously revenue. So that's when I was like, actually, maybe this is a new direction. My dilemma was I also didn't want to dilute my kind of focus. I just want to make sure that we're still growing the app and the D2C side too. It goes a little bit against my initial philosophy, which was like, just be super laser focused on everything. And now I am, but it's just exploring that new area.
I really appreciate you said that, though, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they get shiny object syndrome and try to do all these different things, throw spaghetti at the wall. And I feel like there's a season and era for that. But there also is a season and era for just being very focused, trying to get this thing done. For you right now, it seems like you're starting to expand, do some more things. So how are you going to be changing the structure of your week? I'm always like so nerdy about like try to stay productive, and because it seems like you're trying to be quite focused and intentional with your time.
So for me, every week is completely different. Every day I try to be super flexible to whatever the priorities are. I have this obviously endless to-do list. I try to be like, okay, what are the normally one or maybe up to 3 key things, big things that I need to get done today. And then quick ticks. But there'll always be things on that to-do list that I never get to, and eventually just have to be like, I'm not going to get to that. But it is always what's going to have the impact. And sometimes if I'm exhausted, maybe it's actually I'm just going to do one thing today and then I'm going to do something to help me recover. But yeah, trying to make the most of being my own boss and being like, this day's crazy, but then maybe I can exercise at the end of the day. I'm a creature of habit. So sometimes if I get into too much of a routine, I panic a bit if I'm like, oh, can I change this around? So I'm trying to fight against that and just do what's best for me day by day.
I love that. I started working out at really weird times, like at 11, which I think is unheard of. People either do it super early or after work, but I like to work a bit first and then get the urgent stuff done. And then I like to take a break. Also, the gym is so much quieter at that time.
Yeah.
And then I like come back and I work again. And it works for me, but it just sounds so crazy. People are like, why are you working out at 11 anyways?
I'm normally like get up, work out, and then go to work. But like you say, it's always like crazy at that time in the morning. I can't book into the class I want. And then I'm like, I can just do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I don't have to do this routine. So I'm trying to be more flexible, but I'm not that great at it.
It's okay. You'll get there. So we'll do a quick fire round. Okay. It can be a little bit long. That's okay if it is. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Stay in your own lane. At the beginning, it's always important to know about your competitors. And obviously, I still know what they're doing, but I don't obsess over it. I know what our business is doing and I just focus on that and try not to let any other noise concern me.
Focus your energy on what's important.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the worst advice you've ever received?
The fact that you should get up at 3-4 in the morning, you should do all of this stuff and have a really strict routine and just be super productive all day.
Yeah.
I think that's not actually that healthy and you need to listen and do what is best for you.
Yeah. And also on that note, a lot of those things are meant for male bodies and not for the female body. And so we have an infradian rhythm, we have our menstrual cycle. And so a lot of those things that were popular, intermittent fasting, keto, like all those things have been proven not to be good on the female body.
Wow,
again, going back to like doing what's good for you. That's so important.
Yeah.
And what does sustainability mean to you?
So from a fashion perspective, which is what I'm obsessed with, it's two things. So looking after the planet and also the people within the supply chain.
Love that. What are your goals for Loom? Take over the world?
Yeah. Overall vision is for us to be a global app and solution for brands. So I want people, when they look at their wardrobe, to not think, oh my God, I've got nothing to wear, but actually see all the amazing potential that's in there and just think, I can't wait to put this on Loom and work with a designer to update it.
I'm going to be so excited because I'm moving back to Canada. So I will be patiently waiting for your Canadian rollout.
Yes. We actually have now like an official wait list of all the other countries because people have been reaching out. Yeah, I will definitely let you know.
Okay, cool.
It's coming.
Yay. And how can everyone support you? What are the links? I'll leave links to the app and everything below, but if you wanted to share.
Obviously, download the app and have a play on it. Also, just following us on socials. We love to hear people's feedback and ideas. So it's just great to meet people and get them involved in what we're doing.
Great. Thank you so much, Daisy. This was so lovely.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Confessions of a Conscious CEO. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. If you did, it would mean the world if you subscribed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify and left a rating and review to help more conscious founders discover this show. It would also make my day if you shared this episode to your Instagram stories or LinkedIn and tagged me at Selena Ho or at Confessions of a Conscious CEO. Always cheering you on, and I cannot wait to see what you built from this.